On the peak of Blackwood Cliff, the people there worshiped the Sun Moon Divine Cult. However, the newly appointed cult leader, Ren Woxing, was a ruthless and cruel man with a volatile temperament. He treated the cult members like cattle, killing at will, so they had no choice but to place their hopes in the vice leader, Dongfang Bubai. Half a year ago at Blackwood Cliff, many individuals claiming to be Dongfang Bubai suddenly appeared, attempting to assassinate Ren Woxing. But all were slaughtered without exception, some even hung from trees to be pecked by vultures. It seemed no one could touch him, and he continued his tyranny, believing his martial arts to be unmatched in the world. However, one day, as he was training, a stranger appeared with incredibly powerful martial arts. With a single kick, the man shattered a massive rock in front of Ren Woxing, taking him by surprise. But when he saw the man's face, Ren Woxing sneered. It was yet another Dongfang Bubai. He thought to himself that he had already sent countless people to the underworld, and one more Dongfang made no difference. The two immediately clashed in a battle that shook heaven and earth. Devastating strikes were exchanged, each technique slicing the wind and shattering the skies, shaking all directions. Dust and smoke whirled like a storm, the ground trembling violently, yet neither backed down. Dongfang Bubai stood motionless in the air, his crimson robes fluttering like flames in the dark, his cold eyes piercing everything. In his hand, tiny but deadly golden needles spun rapidly as he manipulated a massive bronze cauldron with surging internal force, sending it crashing toward his foe. Dongfang Bubai smiled coldly and said that Ren Woxing's martial arts were outdated. A sharp needle stabbed straight into Ren's left eye socket, blood spurting everywhere. Then Dongfang Bubai unleashed a flurry of needles that pierced through Ren Woxing's body. Dongfang Bubai gently lay upon the thread-like strings attached to his needles, watching Ren Woxing suspended helplessly. Meanwhile, on the summit of Mount Hua, Ling Huchang was drinking wine and relaxing when suddenly an old man with silver hair appeared. Ling Huchang had no idea who he was, only that the old man shared his love for wine. After the two drank heartily together, the old man revealed his identity as Feng Qingyang, the head of Mount Hua sect. Upon hearing the name, Ling Huchang was stunned and quickly paid his respects, expressing remorse for his earlier disrespect. But Master Feng was unconcerned with such formalities. To him, good wine was all that mattered. Just then, from above, they saw two women being chased. One of them was Ren Yingying, daughter of Ren Woxing, accompanied by her maid. On their way to Mount Hua, they had been pursued by Zuo Lengchan's men. Although both women had decent martial skills, they were overwhelmed by the superior numbers and strength of their enemies. Seeing their dire situation, Ling Huchang was about to help when Master Feng stopped him, saying Ren Yingying was the daughter of a demonic cult leader. He warned not to get involved with such people, lest trouble follow. However, Ling Huchang believed otherwise. He thought one shouldn't judge others by their background, and couldn't stand by while two women were being bullied. Without hesitation, he jumped in to help. Zuo Lengchan, seeing a member of Mount Hua aiding Ren Woxing's daughter, loudly accused him of colluding with the demonic cult. Despite Ling Huchang's explanations, Zuo refused to listen. Ling Huchang didn't expect that an act of justice would bring such disaster. Upon returning to Mount Hua, Ling Huchang was immediately confronted by his master Yue Bukun and many prominent martial figures, including Zuo Lengchan, who pressed charges against him. Zuo brazenly accused Ling Huchang of conspiring with the demonic cult. Surrounded on all sides, Ling Huchang remained calm. He boldly declared that he lived an upright life, unashamed and with nothing to hide. He helped Ren Yingying purely out of righteousness, not with any intent to betray the orthodox path. To prove his innocence, he revealed the book Zuo had claimed to be an evil martial manual. It turned out to be nothing more than a music school. But no matter how he explained, the crowd refused to believe him. To them, there was no reason a disciple of Mount Hua would help the daughter of a demonic cult leader. Yue Bukun, Ling Huchang's own master, didn't defend him. Instead, he coldly gave two options: confess to the crime or be expelled from the sect. Under pressure from all sides, even Master Feng could not change the outcome. In the end, he let them have their way. Before everyone, Ling Huchang was forced to destroy his martial arts and leave the sect. Yue Lingshan and the other disciples were outraged but powerless. Ling Chang painfully abolished his own cultivation, officially no longer a disciple of Mount Hua. But as soon as his power was gone, Zuo Lengqian tried to take advantage. Master Feng swiftly intervened, pulling Ling Chang to safety. He declared that since Ling Chang was no longer part of Mount Hua, he had every right to help him as a free man. Though Ling Chang had destroyed all his power, Master Feng immediately transferred 2 levels of inner strength to him, ignoring anyone's objections. He announced that in the martial world, the rules belong to the strong. And since he was now the strongest present, he would set the rules. Hearing this, the others fell silent, though clearly bitter inside. Elsewhere, Dongfang Gubai was leisurely surrounded by attendants. But in the shadows, a terrifying conspiracy was unfolding. He had more than 10 body doubles acting in his place. The one who fought Ren Waxing earlier was merely a substitute, yet the strongest of them all. A nameless, purposeless stand-in, no different from a puppet on strings. Dongfang Gubai smiled faintly at the substitute before her and said, "If one day I fall in battle, you shall take over the Sun Moon Divine Cult from me." But the substitute remained silent. Though she lived in comfort and lacked nothing, she had never known joy, for her life was nothing but unconditional obedience, devoid of freedom. Back to Ling Chang. After being expelled from his sect, he wandered with Master Feng and was accepted as a disciple. Not only did he have the chance to travel with a great martial master, but he was also taught 8 moves of the 5 poison sword play. Thanks to his hard work and keen mind, he quickly grasped the 8 techniques, leaving only the final move that he had yet to master. Master Feng looked at him with satisfaction, smiled, and said, "When I was young, I wasn't as quick as you are now." But to comprehend the 9th move, Master Feng told him he needed something crucial, life experience. Only after tasting the bitterness and sweetness of life would he naturally grasp the final move. While the two were enjoying their wine, a centipede suddenly crawled out. Master Feng frowned and said, "On this snowy mountaintop, such poisonous insects should not exist. Someone must be here." His intuition was spot on. Below the cliff, 2 people quietly waited to meet Ling Chang. They were none other than Ren Yingying, daughter of Ren Waxing, and her maid. Despite the long, difficult journey, they came to send a signal to him. They released a centipede, but after waiting a long time without seeing Ling Chang, the young lady grew anxious. Yet Ren Yingying knew better than anyone that fate could not be forced. So she played a melody on her zither. Sure enough, the music reached deep into Ling Chang's consciousness. Not long after, he appeared before Ren Yingying. But when she expressed her wish to meet him in person, Ling Chang declined. However, upon returning, he could not rest. He lay awake all night. Reading his disciples' thoughts, Master Feng advised him to go with the young women, for this place did not yet belong to him. Only by going out could he comprehend the 9th technique of the 5 poison sword play. The master's sincere words helped him understand everything. Finally, Ling Chang decided to meet Ren Yingying. She told him that her visit was not just to play music and meet him, but for a greater cause. Ren Yingying explained that her father had been captured by Dongfang Gubai and was now imprisoned in a dungeon with no way to escape. Dongfang now held power over the Sun Moon Divine Cult and had invited top martial artists to gather at Blackwood Cliff. His goal was to force them to declare him the leader of the martial world. If that happened, she feared chaos would befall the land. Thus, she sought Ling Chang's help to stop this and protect the martial world from bloodshed. Ling Chang grew worried for the martial realm's fate, but he still felt unprepared, believing he lacked the strength to make a difference. Sensing this, Master Feng unhesitatingly gifted Ling Chang his precious sword. It would protect him on his path to bring order to the martial world. Armed with the sword and his master's heartfelt guidance, he and Ren Yingying set out on their mission. Along the way, they came upon Yu Lingshan and other Huashan disciples being attacked by Dongfang Gubai's follower, the Dark-Lipped Man. Wielding butcher-like cleavers, he swiftly defeated the Huashan disciples. Just as he was about to strike down Yue Lingshan, he was suddenly blown away. The attacker was none other than Ling Chang. Moments later, 2 more enemies appeared, completing the trio of Tan, Shan, and Shi, Dongfang Gubai's most trusted disciples. The 3 surrounded him in a triangular formation. Tan was a fat man with greedy eyes that craved everything. Shan had a blood-red face and eyes burning with hatred. She was a gaunt, sinister figure, always muttering nonsense as if lost in his own world. Despite their fierce attacks, they began to falter before Ling Hu Chang's storm-like strikes. They tried to resort to dirty tricks, but he foiled every scheme. Still not giving up, the trio combined forces, launching a triple-strength attack to swallow Ling Hu Chang whole. But he channeled his inner energy, creating a massive cyclone that hurled the three far away, draining them of strength. Realizing they were no match for him, they fled into the forest. Ling Hu Chang chased after them, but encountered a woman in red by a waterfall. It was Dongfang Bubai's substitute. Lin Hu never realized the truth. He thought she was just an innocent young lady, and even planned to help her. Dawnblade gave a secret signal to her subordinates and pretended to fall into a waterfall as if under attack. Seeing the beauty in danger, Lin Hu leaped in without hesitation. Both emerged from the water and became acquainted. They shared wine and confided in each other. He affectionately gave her the name Little Fish, never suspecting she could take his life at any moment. Like many men enchanted by a celestial beauty, he forgot all surrounding danger. Lin Hu was no exception. He even hoped to meet her again for another night of wine and conversation. Surprisingly, since meeting Lin Hu, the woman also began experiencing strange emotions she had never felt before. On the way to find Music Sister, Lin Hu encountered Master Melody by accident. Mistaking him for an assassin, Lin Hu struck too hard and left him unconscious. When he awoke, Master Melody said his daughter and disciples had been taken by Dawnblade to Blackwood Cliff, and he needed to rescue them. Although no longer a member of Mount Blossom sect, Lin Hu felt indebted to the man who raised him, so he chose to accompany Master Melody. They arrived at a steep cliff. According to Master Melody, every noon, Dawnblade would sacrifice her captives and toss their bodies off the cliff. With no time to waste, they climbed up. As they ascended, Lin Hu examined the corpses stuck to the rocks. While Lin Hu was still climbing, Master Melody suddenly pulled out a hidden dagger, intending to kill him. But before he could act, they were discovered and attacked by Dawnblade's men, forcing them to separate to escape pursuit. After Lin Hu fled, Master Melody revealed his true face and approached Dawnblade. It turned out he had joined the cult. As part of the initiation, Dawnblade gave each newcomer a sacred pill. It erased love, hatred, and pain, and granted long life and healing. At first, Master Melody doubted it, but after seeing others consume the pill and experience miraculous effects, he followed suit. Dawnblade claimed anyone who swallowed the pill would become a servant of the cult, obeying every command. Master Melody agreed. Elsewhere, Lin Hu arrived at an inn. When he entered, the lights in Dawnblade's room went out. But he still sensed something strange, and instead of her, met Little Fish in red. Though intelligent and rational, Lin Hu would always lose himself when facing Little Fish. Seeing her in Dawnblade's room, he foolishly assumed she was only there to steal wine. Little Fish, amused by his naivety, went along and even invited him to a hidden wine cellar. Lin Hu, thrilled to find a kindred spirit, followed her to a paradise for wine lovers. They drank, admired the moon, and enjoyed a rare moment of peace. In his drunken state, Lin Hu confessed he never sought fame or fortune. He had returned to the martial world only to save his fellow disciples. What he truly longed for was a life of freedom, unbound by duty. His sincere words shook the heart of the female demon. It was the first time anyone had spoken to her with such honesty. He invited her to roam the martial world together, to savor the beauty of the land, fine wine, and fine company, a life like a dream. Though she knew such a world was beyond her reach, her heart was moved. So, she agreed to help Lin Hu with his rescue mission. The plan was simple. He would pretend to be captured, and she would personally escort him to the prison. The guards, pleased to catch a prisoner, let their guard down. When Lin Hu reunited with Music Sister and the others, he immediately laid out a plan to escape. He pretended to be killed by a fellow disciple. The guards rushed in to check, only for Lin Hu to spring up and unleash his martial skills, defeating them all in an instant. He had no idea that in the shadows, the woman in red had quietly assisted him. As they approached the exit, a masked attacker struck. Just one exchange revealed it was someone familiar. Grace Lin and her followers had infiltrated the stronghold to save her father, Lord Lin. Previously, Grace Lin had helped Lin Hu locate where his fellow disciples were imprisoned. Thanks to her, he had saved them all. Now he couldn't turn away. Lin Hu told the others to escape first, while he stayed to help Grace rescue her father. They heard Lord Lin's thunderous shout and found his location. But the door to his cell could not be opened easily. Lin Hu then shouted that Lord Lin had escaped. The guards rushed over, only to be knocked unconscious. With the key secured, Lin Hu held off the guards while Grace entered the prison. Lord Lin was overjoyed to see his daughter and ordered her to remove the iron bar, suppressing his internal energy. As soon as it was withdrawn, he roared and shattered the chains, bursting free like a wild tiger. He immediately began punishing those who imprisoned him, starting with Dawnblade's trio of greed, deception, and cruelty. With one sweeping blow, he crushed them. Then, he turned to former subordinates who had betrayed him. Horrified by his brutality, Grace Lin and Lin Hu tried to stop him, but Lord Lin coldly replied that traitors must die. Anyone plotting to steal the sect deserved death. Finally, he turned to Lin Hu and said, "You are my savior." He wanted the young man to stay and help him fulfill his grand ambition. As long as Ling Hu Chong agreed, he would immediately grant him the second highest position in the martial world, under only one person and above all others. But Ling Hu Chong had never cared for fame, power, or status. To him, all of that meant nothing, so he rejected the offer without hesitation. Even when Ren Waxing offered him his beloved daughter's hand in marriage, he firmly declined, wanting only to leave. Ren Waxing, unable to accept such repeated rejections, was furious and prepared to strike. However, Ren Yingying stepped in just in time. She pleaded with her father not to repay kindness with cruelty. Doing so, she warned, would ruin all hopes of achieving greatness. Ren Waxing, swayed by her words, relented and allowed Ling Hu Chong to go free. Once released, Ling Hu Chong reunited with his junior sister and fellow disciples. They were true companions, always waiting for him, no matter where fate took them. That night, they drank together, sharing stories of the hardships each had endured. But as the night deepened and everyone fell asleep, Ling Hu Chong knew that ever since leaving his sect, he was no longer a disciple of Mount Hua. Quietly, he slipped away in the darkness, unnoticed by anyone. The next morning, while passing through a market, he unexpectedly encountered his old master, Yue Bukin. But Yue was no longer the noble, upright man he once was. Neither fully man nor ghost, his movements were suspicious and his gaze full of malice. Ling Hu Chong trailed him to a secluded room. Inside, 4 large vats stood neatly arranged. The lids were slightly ajar, not containing wine or food, but the corpses of 4 slain elders. Their pale faces and stiff bodies confirmed the horror. Yubukin stood there, eyes hollow, muttering that only by doing this could he dominate the martial world. As soon as he noticed Ling Hu Chong, he tried to drive him away. But how could Ling Hu Chong turn a blind eye to such atrocities? He pleaded with Yue to abandon this madness. Yet the lure of power had clouded Yue's mind. He admitted that he had joined the Sun and Moon sect not out of loyalty, but to obtain the legendary Sunflower Manual. With its power, he could conquer the martial world, protect Mount Hua, and safeguard his daughter. Those words struck Ling Hu Chong deeply. Just as he let his guard down, Yue stabbed him in the chest with a sharp dagger. Blood spilled, and he staggered backward. But at that moment, a flash of light sliced through the air. The cold blade of a woman in red descended, and in an instant, Yue Bukin's head fell to the ground. Ling Hu Chong, gravely wounded, was taken to a secluded mountain cottage by Dongfang Bubai. Though the injury was near his heart, she treated him with a rare and powerful elixir. After days of unconsciousness, he finally awoke, eyes hazy as he saw her silhouette. In the vastness of nature, with skies wide and waters deep, even the strongest hearts cannot resist emotion. And so, what was meant to happen did. They came together in that fleeting moment. The next morning, Dongfang Bubai sat before a mirror, carefully applying makeup. But to her horror, her face began to twist and contort, becoming grotesque. Panicked, she fled. For all her fearsome reputation, she was still a woman, and like all women, she wanted to remain beautiful in the eyes of the man she loved. When Ling Hu Chong awoke, the cottage was empty. He wandered endlessly in search of Xiaoyu, but in vain. Eventually, he arrived at Blackwood Cliff, where Dongfang Bubai was gathering forces to unite the martial world. Though her face was veiled, her familiar posture and tone revealed her identity. Through her voice, he realized that the infamous demoness was his beloved Xiao Yu. But she was also the very villain the martial world loathed. To confirm the truth, he followed her silently to her private chambers. That night, hidden in darkness, he watched as she killed Lin Fenghuang using nothing but a hair-thin needle. Blood flowed, and she drank it to preserve her beauty. In that moment, Ling Huchang saw her true nature. Xiao Yu was no innocent girl. She was a demoness feared across the land. She soon realized his presence, but made no attempt to flee or hide. Calmly, she confessed everything. She asked him, now that he knew she was a bloodthirsty demoness, would he still want to roam the world with her? Ling Huchang, without hesitation, replied that if she was willing to abandon it all, he would go with her to the ends of the earth. But she only smiled sadly. Her eyes darkened as she said that since birth, she had been bound to this place by the poison in her veins. It was the only thing keeping her alive. Only through mastering the Sunflower Manual had she become the strongest under heaven. But to leave this place would mean death. Now, to stay alive, she had to drink human blood daily. Her chilling words pierced Ling Huchang's heart like a blade. He could not believe the woman he loved had become a monster. Shattered, he realized he had fallen for the wrong person. Knowing she could never change, he declared that from this moment on, they were finished. With no further words, he turned and left without a glance back. Dongfang Bubai stood silently, watching his figure fade into the night. That evening, when Ling Huchang returned to where his brothers and junior sister had been hiding, he found only ruins engulfed in flames. Everything had been reduced to ash, the air thick with smoke and the stench of blood. His brethren, gone forever. While he was still reeling, unsure of who had caused this tragedy, Ling Shan suddenly sprang up. The moment she saw him, she rushed forward, her sword trembling in her hand, yet still aimed directly at him, screaming in grief and fury. She accused him of slaughtering everyone to gain favor and prove his loyalty to the faction of Invincible East. Ling Huchang was horrified, unable to believe what he was hearing. He tried to explain, pleading with her to stay calm, but the pain and hatred in her heart were too overwhelming. It took everything he had to soothe her. When the truth finally came to light, Ling Shan collapsed in tears, consumed by sorrow and shame. Ling Huchang, devastated, bowed his head before his fallen brothers, swearing vengeance and justice for them all. After burying the disciples, he and Ling Shan went to seek Ren Woxing, proposing an alliance with him and his daughter to eliminate Invincible East. Together, they set off toward Blackwood Cliff. The night sky was ominous, wind howling against the steep cliffs. Invincible East stood tall atop the peak, her crimson robe fluttering against the pitch-black heavens, her eyes calm and unreadable. She had long known this day would come, and showed no surprise. She declared she would welcome them warmly tonight. At once, Ling Huchang, Ren Woxing, and Ren Yingying drew their swords and charged toward the deadly woman. But someone who had mastered the Sunflower Manual was no easy foe. Her movements were ghostly, her swordplay impossibly fast and unpredictable. Sharp threads of golden light shot out like a snowstorm, preventing the three from getting close. Seeing this, Ren Woxing summoned all his internal energy, hoping to shake heaven and earth. But no matter how powerful he was, it couldn't stand against the Sunflower Manual. Before he could unleash his power, he was struck back, blood spraying from his mouth. Invincible East remained calm, not even slightly fatigued. Through clenched teeth, Ren Woxing shouted to Ling Huchang to keep attacking, saying that when she showed an opening, he would use the great absorbing skill to end her. As soon as he spoke, Ling Huchang lunged forward, his sword aimed at the woman who once stirred his heart, now his sworn enemy. At first, Invincible East hesitated, still holding back due to old affection. But when she realized he truly wanted to kill her, she hesitated no more and struck him backward with a fierce blow. Her voice sharp as a blade, she claimed she hadn't killed his fellow disciples. Ling Huchang didn't believe her. Enraged, he suddenly recalled the 9th move of Dugu 9 Swords. Like lightning, his blade pierced her chest, but no blood came out. No pain showed on her face. Ling Huchang stood frozen in disbelief. She had no heart. How could that be? How could anyone live without a heart? As he stood there in confusion, From a distance, Ren Woxing saw his chance and immediately used the great absorbing skill, draining her of all remaining energy. Though nearly spent, she unleashed 1,000 golden threads in one last attack. But it was too late. Her strength failed, and she was blasted backward, her slender figure plunging into the bottomless abyss, red robes fluttering as she vanished into the endless night. Ling Huchong couldn't bear to watch the woman he once loved disappear like that. The fire of their past affection still smoldered within him, pushing him to dive after her. On the edge of life and death, he only wanted to know one thing. Where was her heart? Invincible East gave no answer. She simply placed her hand gently on his chest. In that moment, Ling Huchong realized with shock that the heart beating inside him was no longer his own. When he had been fatally stabbed by his master, he should have died, but she had given him her own heart to save his life. Perhaps it was love. Perhaps in this turbulent martial world, Ling Huchong was the only one who ever made her feel human. So she chose to sacrifice herself, to give her life to the man she loved. In that final moment, a rare softness shone in her proud eyes, and with her last ounce of strength, she pushed Ling Huchong away. Letting herself fall into the void, Ren Woxing witnessed her death with glee, his maniacal laughter echoing through the mountains. But that very moment awakened a memory in Ling Shan. She suddenly recalled that terrible night, the night her entire sect was massacred. The true killer wasn't Invincible East. It was Ren Woxing, who had committed the slaughter in her name, pinning the blame on her. Ling Huchong gripped his sword tightly, eyes burning with fury. He wanted nothing more than to strike down the villain in a single blow, but Ling Shan stopped him. She said vengeance would only stain the martial world further and would not bring back the dead. Exposed for who he truly was, Ren Woxing still refused to give up. He tried to persuade Ling Huchong to join him again, but just like before, Ling Huchong merely sneered, full of contempt, and walked away. Ren Yingying quietly watched his figure disappear into the distance. At last, she recognized her father's cruelty, so she chose to leave the world of strife behind and find her own path. On a boat drifting across the vast ocean, Ling Huchong and Ling Shan continued their carefree journey through the martial world. The wind howled, the sea stretched endlessly, but within his heart remained the shadow of a woman he could never forget, a woman who had stirred him to his very soul. She was Invincible East, a demon feared by all. But to him, she was just a free little fish, swimming through the deep ocean, forever out of reach. The martial world remained chaotic, never black and white, only wandering souls trapped between love and hate, between dreams and reality. Though Invincible East had vanished into nothingness, in Ling Huchong's heart, the image of that free little fish stayed forever, like a sorrowful melody echoing endlessly through the stormy realm of Jianghu.